Hey everybody, John Gucci Foley here. Hey, I am with Paul Crowder. Now, Paul's the director of the world famous, incredible film, The Blue Angels. It's having so much success. And we're going to dive deep, Paul, into what's behind that film, too, and your thought process. But I also have Alan D. Herrera. Alan and I are good friends, good partners. He is one of the top journalists and photographers for the Navy. He's done a lot of projects and done a lot of credible stuff. So we're going to dive deep into a lot of stuff. Paul, first off, we always start with the blues with a glad to be here. I am so grateful to have this opportunity with you. I want to ask you what impacted you as you think back to filming this incredible film. What did you walk away with, and what did it do for you personally?
Glad to be here. First of all, thanks for having me. It's an absolute honor and pleasure. Um, it was interesting because, I'm a very rebellious
Ah,
person in nature. Don't do well with authority. I've never ever considered the military as a thing for me. I was always worried that they'd bring back military service when, national service, which my father had to go through, which they actually stopped doing in the early 60s, which got me clear by the time I was 18. In the 80s, it was over, so I didn't have to worry about that. But then we had the Falklands War, and there was talk of them starting the draft if it got continued. So didn't really see myself like as a fit for the military. And when we went over to El Centro for the first time in February, I think it was early February of 2022, and I got on the base. We arrived late, got our rooms, and woke up first thing in the morning. I had an early start, and I was standing outside, and there was action on, a little bit of action. We were staying at some of the housing, and there was cars driving, and the stuff was happening, and revelry went up. The 8 o'clock, it stopped, and everyone stopped. Car was driving. The car stopped. The guy got out the car, and he stood and he faced the flag direction and saluted. And everyone around me that I was with all stopped and did the same. And it completely like walloped me. It was like, whoa, wait a second. I like my perspective just flipped. It was like seeing a UFO or something, where you change perspective on your life or whatever, or your just everything you up to this moment just took a turn. And I was totally moved. I was almost moved to tears by this moment. And I suddenly had this epiphany of what this means to serve your country, to be a military person and to be in that world. And it was like, my first, even though my research on the Blue Angels and everything I knew about the Blue Angels, I knew they were all about perfection, but it really was my first sort of intention of like, you got to step this up, mate. This is a different world you're going to be in here for the rest of this time. And it was like day one, I got to change my attitude a little bit. I got to get forward. So that was the first thing that hit me hard. And then obviously the next thing that hit me hard was realizing that how much work we were going to have to do to capture this. How huge. We walked around the whole base and saw everybody in action in their rooms, all the different departments, with everybody just at it all the time. And then about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe 3, everybody changed. The new everybody the A's became the B's or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I was just shocked about how on earth do we capture all this, but I was totally and utterly moved by the occasion, by being there.
That reminded me of my first flight with the Blue Angels. I had been in the Navy probably about 10 years at the time, been flying jets off aircraft carriers, flew in the original movie Top Gun. And when I walked into the Blue Angel first briefing, actually debrief, I had that same epiphany. And then when they strapped you in the jet, and you're actually go for a ride the first time you're in the back seat, even though you're a fully qualified F-18 pilot, you're not a Blue Angel yet, right? And I remember when they slammed those full afterburners on, and number 2, I was riding in the 4th spot. Remember how 4 slides underneath, right?
Mm.
And the flames are coming out, the airplane's shaking, and these guys go straight up. I mean, here I am, a totally qualified F-18 pilot. My eyes got this big, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm in a whole new league. And so it's so interesting that you had that epiphany Um, and I think you were able, what I want to thank you is you were able to get that across in this film. It wasn't just the photography, which was phenomenal. And Alan, I can't wait to hear, how you filmed that, what you captured, because it was the best ever. But I really want to thank you for capturing the ethos of the Blue Angels. What does it mean to have a mindset of continuous improvement? What does it mean to have a purpose higher than self? What does it mean to be part of this organization? So thank you for that. Now let's unpack it. But Alan, over to you, please.
Hey, Paul. What I'm really curious at, being a journalist and a storyteller, is how you went about structuring this story. Like, how familiar were you with the team? You've seen them perform before, I assume, or did you do any scouting before to watch the team and try to get an idea? How do we want to shoot this? What's the story we want to tell? So did you go in there with a basic structure, how you want to tell this story, and then it evolved, obviously, and probably in post you had to change the story in other ways? But how did you go about, because it's such a Blue Angel is such a big entity, there's so many directions you could have gone with the story. How did you make those decisions from the get-go and then through the process?
I think the first out, what we did was we met the team. We talked about making the film with the producers and everybody in August. It came my way in August of 2021. So when we sat down and had the discussions, and we went to the Huntington Beach show, which I think was like late September or early October in 2021. And all the newbies were there. So Cheese and Jamami and a bunch of the others were in their khakis, shadowing the rest. Boss Kesselring was boss. And there were different number 2, number 3, number 4. But Chomps was number 3. And so we met them all at this. We went to see the show, and then we hung out with them at a bar later that evening. We went to a bar and just sort of, hi, I'm going to be your director for the film. And everyone met. Mark Monroe, the producers, Glenn Zipper, Sean Stewart was there, and a couple of the other people. I hadn't picked the DP at this point, although I knew who I was going to call. It was still much earlier than that. So we watched the show. We saw them. I watched the beach show, so I was kind of like looking around for high places. I mean, I think the key thing out the gate was like, okay, I'm watching the show. My view of this is incredible. Wow, look at that. Look at the perspective you get where you make the jets look like when they're coming together, that they're like, it's, it looks so dangerous.
The parallax, yeah.
This view is great. However, this is the view everybody sees. This is the view we can all go to a show and watch it from here. So we really didn't want to shoot as much of this as we would want to have that perspective, of course, but we had to figure out how can we do this differently. And from the outset, we'd spoken to Kevin LaRosa very quickly, and we made the address that we would want to put a helicopter in the air. Will the Navy let us? They have these camera mounts that they used on Top Gun Maverick. Can we make the same thing so we can do that? That would be what we would want. And then how do we get in the cockpit? The more research we did, we discovered how difficult that was going to be. Yeah. Because especially in Top Gun, they've got a 2-seater. They put the camera in the front seat, the actor's in the back seat, and they pretend to be a pilot. They do all the maneuvers as if they're in the front seat, and you just don't have the perspective. You have much more space for it. They had to strip the box down, but you had space to put the box, put the Venice cap. We didn't have that, and they're in single seaters, and only 3 of them are seasoned. 3 of them are rookies. Number 6 is a new pilot now. He's come, Whiskers have come up from being narrator, and then Cheese and Jamami were both brand new, so can't put cockpit cameras with them. They're just learning out of, issues and everything. So all the different profiles they're going to have to learn. So we had to figure all this out. How are we going to do this? And we got the right cameras. Having it be an IMAX movie, that means you've got to have the resolution that fits the screen. So you have a limitation as to what cameras you can use, just because they don't shoot at that resolution. So those are our initial things. But the first meetings was like, how do we do this? I know you've got routine, right? So every day they're going to be doing the same thing. So how do I make a film where really nothing changes all season? How do we do that? So I'm like, okay, well, here's the key. let's go meet everybody and let's figure out who they are and what are their characters and who's the characters that have very communicative, have a great history, a story. I mean, pretty much every one of them was influenced and became a Blue Angel, or even joined the Navy, became a pilot from seeing the Blue Angels. Most of them, I think like 98% of the people that I talked to had been influenced by the Blue Angels in some way. So I knew that was that's a good through line for folk. And then it was just meeting all these great people. It's sitting down with all the crew, all the team, the pilots, the enlisted, everybody from, crew chiefs down to the mechanics, down to the supply officers, the paint crew, every little different department that makes this a show. It's just like a film. I sit in the big chair. I'm like boss in the number one jet, but without my team, I'm nothing, So, and it was just about finding the characters, and we found there were some great things. There was so many stories, actually. The thing that's sad, not sad, but difficult as a filmmaker, is you have these great stories in, oh God, these people are getting married, and this person's having a baby, and this person's got married, and now they're pregnant, and boss's wife's having another baby, and blah 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 is happening. And then you talk to Henry Cedeno, who had to move out of his home of Puerto Rico because of a flash flood, and he ended up in Miami or in Florida, and at the end of his yard is the airport where the Blue Angels fly when they get to town. So he's like sees the Blue Angels at the end of his yard as a young boy, and he's like, I want to join the Navy, and he ends up becoming AMO for our show, and then it was maintenance officer, the thing, which is just an unbelievable journey that he had with everything he had against him. It was like, God, I've got to tell Henry's story, and I couldn't.
He's a great guy, man.
And he's such a sweetheart. We went to shoot one day up in the tower. They said, hey, you can go to the tower. Well, Henry's going to take you over there, and you can watch the show from the tower. So like, great, discovered with security stuff that, oh, we can't actually film in here. All right, well, it's great fun to watch the show. But in the drive over, Henry and I were just talking, and he gave me his backstory. And so, it was, for me, it was something I wanted to include in the film early on, and then process. You end up, so the way the film starts to develop, you suddenly realize these hard decisions you have to make. You got to drop some of these stories out as much as you want to do that. If we were doing a 6-part series,
sure, exactly.
You've got all these other tangibles, but in to tell, we had to lose as more of those personal stories.
A really quick follow-up to that, and then Gucci's going to jump in, is how did you decide how much focus you want to put on the diamond and how much focus on the solos? Because they're kind of two entities, and then they come together, then they separate. But most of the film kind of focused on the diamond. But how did you make those decisions between those two separate teams that come together as one? And that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, that was the dynamic I liked, was that little bit of ribbing between the diamond and solos, right? And we did try to get a moment of that in and try to people to understand. But I really was looking at them more as a whole, as the delta really than the diamond and the solos. I took the team on in my mind the whole time as it was just 6 pilots. There are 6. There's not, it isn't as separate. So with the repetition, can't even say the word, with the repetition of their routine and everything, it was like, okay, we're going to show, they practice, they fly, they go to the next place. And then we show them doing that. And then they're in traveling. And then they're back at home and they're practicing flying. And they were traveling. It's like, God, this is just going to be a very predictable film. It's going to come to the point where, how do we, and this is something that JJ brought up. He says, look, first cut, we were loving the first cut, he says, but it looks great. And I'm intrigued, and I'm just interested personally. So I'm staying with the film. But if I were to turn it off after 20 minutes, what do I miss? That was it was brilliant question, because we were just like, yeah, but it's the rest of the season, and look at this and stuff. So we had to sort of like try and focus something on, like, give our audience something to be always striving for, because they're all good people. Everyone's nice. No one's, as you know, you're a Blue Angel, right? If you've got any animosity, you have to bury anything. You have to rise above it and love thy neighbor 100% and give them everything, because your life's in everybody's hands. You can't have, if there's any animosity, it's not going to work. So if we never saw anything, I had, if there was any, I didn't see a single thing of that. So, okay, I haven't got that kind of drama to play off of. They were a little bit sensitive about a couple of the team that had to get kicked off because they didn't meet the standards for whatever reason. And I wanted to focus on that, couldn't do that. So what we ended up doing was figuring that the Diamonds objective, if you like, is to try and get to the Yankee set, try and do that thing that not every team gets to be that good, and as much practice and trust and ability. So we figured if we make that our theme, that's why you got to watch the film. Are they going to get to the Yankee set? Will they achieve this goal that they're set for themselves? So that became why it was slightly more diamond focused, was just because that was really something we could get our audience intrigued in. And because we had such incredible footage of it at the end, because we got the helicopter back in November. All the rookies now had in-camera things because they were seasoned for the year and everyone was comfortable with them putting cameras in their cockpits. We got the look-back camera attached, like right towards the end of the year, with Venice on the back of Boss, so it was right behind, right on his tail, rather than seeing the whole fuselage, which the GoPro type thing was getting, the RXO was getting that. So we got much better. So that whole Yankee formation of the Diamond 360, we had it in such beautiful coverage. It was like a very powerful scene in our first cut anyway, but now you've driven toward can we, and Chomp says, yeah, we can do this, the Yankee set, Diamond 360. So that's why we ended up with it slightly more focused on the diamond, because that was kind of the goal for the film, for the audience, something to keep the audience hooked.
Yeah.
Paul, love that. I want to get back to the human element of the film, because you did such a good job of capturing that. And you started to talk about the different personalities, but how they all come together as a team, right? And it's a purpose higher than self. Why did you pick, what were some of the personalities that came out that you said, oh, that's what I want to focus on? And by the way, you did an amazing job of that Yankee set, leading up to it. But you also focused in on certain characters on the team a little bit more. Could you tell us who they were and why you did that?
Well, obviously, Boss, being his last year, was obviously a character that I was hoping when we got there, Boss would be good. Now, I've met him in October, and he seemed a nice guy, but it was pretty brief. So it was really down to when we went to our first shoot and sat down and interviewed him. It was like, I'm going to find out how these guys are on camera now. I'm going to find out how well they talk about themselves and how intimate they get and how emotional they get. Do they just put this front on, or are they actually going to reveal themselves in any way? And Boss revealed himself out the gate. So I was right in. I'm like, okay, Brian's going to be awesome. I reported straight back to everybody. I was like, Brian's going to kill this. He's definitely a character we need to sort of focus on. I can see it now. We were in El Centro and I could see he was already, a little emotional about what was coming in November. We're going to have, drop a salute and he's done. So I really focused on him. And then everybody else was they were all great characters. It was kind of funny when I walked in to see them all that first time, and I actually looked at them as a group, and I'm not just the pilots, but the enlisted and everybody. I'm like, did we go to central casting to get these people? Because everyone they were like, I couldn't have cast them better. It was just such a great look and such a great diversity. And that was the other thing I loved about it, was there was so much diversity and so much inclusion, and it was completely inclusive. I actually had someone post a thing on Twitter the other day, just a couple of days ago, and atted me on it and grabbed a frame from the corridor shot where they got the Pride stuff up on the wall, and everyone was like, great to see Pride being shown in the Blue Angels thing. So that was something that was obviously very apparent. But there was just interviewing them, getting to know them a bit more, I was fanboying out on all these guys, and I get there, and they've discovered that, like, in my youth, I was in a band called Flogging Molly, in the first version of that band, and they were all like, "You were in Flogging Molly," and they were fanboying out on me for that reason. So it was a very strange, fun dynamic, and we kind of like sort of set each other up as, I want to say equals, but on a level where we could, we were conversing. I wasn't, I didn't feel like I was looking up at them anymore. I feel like I could look them straight in the face, because they kind of trying to look up at me for doing that. So there was a bit of mutual respect. I was worried because, like, I've done a ton of films. I'm an editor by trade. I've directed about 6-7 films now that are really good and really, so proud of, the Formula One film, and etc. So, but I'm not a named director. You're not sort of like, here comes.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, they had to look me up, to find out who I was. But then they got I got the respect for having the work that I did. So meeting all these characters, meeting all these people, as I say, it became obvious who the strong ones were. That really, we've got too many stories. Cheesy's story is going to be great. He struggled with education, and he had to really fight to get his grades up so he could even make it as a pilot before he even got into the Blue Angels. He had to try 3 times before he got in the Blue Angels. Whiskers had, just natural, just dealing with, race, especially in his earlier years when it was, people were a little meaner, and we've grown up a lot as a society in the last 20 years. But still, you have that's something. And then you've got the dynamic of the having the Marines in with the Navy, and the Marines have a slightly different way of looking. And you meet all the Fat Albert crew, who are fantastic, but you start talking to them about Marines off camera, and they give you all this great stuff. You're like, so you get to the interview, you're like, hey, give me that. They're not going to give you that. Exactly. But there's respect, 100% respect between them all. But they like to really, it's that, one-upmanship that you get in any situation where we're better than those guys. Just wonderful.
Your relationship with the Navy, going through all the approval process that you needed through, how was that from the get-go? And did you have some people kind of helping with that, in the sense of people connected in the Navy saying, yeah, this is definitely a good thing? Obviously,
I mean, really, Boss Greg and Rob Stone, who's had the brilliant idea to want to make this film for the 75th anniversary. Obviously, COVID and things slowed everything down. Plus, just the way Hollywood works it's always a slow process. But having Boss in your corner, having him sort of like be the go-to, he knows everybody in the Navy. He's respected, retired captain, obviously, and his 3-time boss and all of that. So he knows everyone. He was able to sort of make the first connections. So the idea of the film, you've got Glenn Powell, you've got J.J. Abrams, you've got Zipper Brothers and Sutter Road, and then you've got Mark Monroe and myself at Diamond Dogs. We're all have an incredible respect within our industry for what we do. So the Navy respected who we were. We've got Boss talking it up. The pitch was good. Everything was right. So once we were in with the Navy, it was just the do's and don'ts. You can and you can't. You have access to this. You can't have access to that. How can we, can we do this? Yes, we will allow you to do this. Like, can we attach the cameras to a jet? Can't put it in the diamond formation or the delta formation, but you can attach it to a follow jet, which is what we ended up doing. But you have to have our mounts, and they have to be approved by us, and they have to be built by us, and that's going to cost X. And then when we saw that, we're like, let's call the Maverick guys. Can we see if we can get their mounts, because they're already made, already approved, already done. So now we just need to get the Navy's approval to reuse them. So we had the connections. We had the right people upstairs. I remember driving on the Pacific Coast Highway, and someone said someone was going to call you, and regarding it, the film, they just want to talk to you. So I'm just driving on the PCH, minding my own, miles away. I'm going to get my hair cut or something. I'm not even thinking about anything, and I see a 202 number come up on the phone. I was like, it's just, oh wait a minute, that's Washington.
Yeah.
So I took the call, and it was like a 3-star admiral or whatever. And I was like, had this conversation, just asked me questions, and we had a lot of conversation. I hung up. And I was like, I'm on the phone with a 3-star admiral. What's going? It was so surreal. I'm like, does he even know my history? I bet they do now, right?
Yeah.
If he really knows what kind of person. So it was. We had that connection where the higher ups were aware and happy. Everyone was satisfied with what we were doing. And so that made the difficult things easy. Like, can we put a commercial helicopter in the formation? Well, we've talked to the Blue Angels. They're okay with it. You know, boss is okay with it. He feels like his team can handle it. Everybody can handle it. We've got Kevin LaRosa and Michael Fitzmaurice as DP for that, who are completely seasoned pilots themselves, outside, you know, being good at what they're just great pilots.
Yeah.
Can we put it in the box? Can we do it? And so it was, they approved it. If you can figure out the safety issues, yes, you can do that. So again, we had this trust level with the Navy that the people upstairs, and everything has to be approved. That was the other thing. You can't just show up, oh, grab the camera and take it down there. Let's go grab that thing that's happening right now. No, you have to be down there. They got to know you're there. You need to have a Blue Angel with you all the time. They need to know where the camera's going to be and at what time, especially if you're going to step onto the flight line. You absolutely have to be in a position where everyone's expecting you to be. And it took us a little while to figure that out. You know, just even, you know, well, I want to go get a shot. Let's, what would it look like if we were down at the 6th jet for this? Let's go stand, let's go take a look at the perspective for like looking back at the jets, looking back at the hangar, whatever we were thinking at the time. So Jessica and I just trundled down there, out onto the flight line, down by the jets, and we're framing things up and blah, 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 blah. And then there's these 3 Blue Angels coming at us. Like, stern look in their face, and I was like, well, you fucked up. We didn't get anybody, did we? We didn't ask. And you know, we were dragged back to the hangar, literally. And the next day they sat down with us, and we had a big sort of like come to Jesus moment where if you don't do this, we're going to shut this thing down. If you don't adhere to the, you know, it's safety. Because something happens to you guys, it hits us, and there are people who don't want us to fly. You know, there are people who don't want to spend the money on the Blue Angels as a unit. So you know, it hurts everybody. So we had this big that was the last time we'd ever did anything like that. From that moment on, you know, we were always our routine. They would have their debrief. You got, okay, they're going to warm the jets at 8 o'clock in the morning. They're going to brief at 10. They're going to fly at 11. Blah 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 blah. And on there was, IMAX crew will be here, IMAX crew will be there, they're going to do this at this time. And they knew where we were going to be all the time. We had to do that, which was, it's great. You have your shot lists and stuff you want to get, but now it's even more militarized. And it's not 9:53 LA time. Time is happening at 9:53. You know, you can't expect it, oh, it'll be about 10:15 at the end. No, it's happening at 9:53 or whatever their time is. So, you know, all of that we had to get used to. It was fantastic, though. It was great. Everyone was so happy to see us. You can imagine something so routine as military life and being in the Blue Angel and your daily routines. You know what to expect every time you walk around a corner, walk into a room, and suddenly there's a film crew in the corridor. There's a film crew in the office that you just walked in. It's a film crew where you, through the path you usually walk to get to your jet or whatever. You'd think that would be like, oh, God, I hate it when they're here because I've got to change my routine. They loved having us there. They thought it was the best. And they're always high-fiving. Hey, Paul, Jessica, Bridget, you know, just Wade, what's up? You know, they would just have all this great love for you and, you know, high-five you in the corridor. If you just, well, I mean, I just stroll when we weren't shooting. I just walk around the hangar and walk around the places that I was safe. I knew I was okay to walk in. And everyone's just giving me a little fist bump or a high-five. Hey, Paul. And just beautiful, wonderful thing. God, I wish I'd done that younger. I might have joined.
There you go. Hey, Paul, you said a couple of things and I want to just dive in. One of them is this idea of inspiration. You know, I define inspiration as to breathe life into. You know, you mentioned almost every pilot, 98% of them had seen the Blue Angels, not just the pilots, the ground crew, right? And I think that's one of the gifts of your film. It is to inspire, right? I mean, it was phenomenal what you created. To get to do that, you needed access. And so what I'm kind of wondering here is, what were some of those wide-eye moments. You've given me a couple of hey, we ran out on a flight line and we get dragged off, right? But give me some more of those moments that you weren't expecting. When before we started this, we had a very quick conversation, and I believe you said it changed your life. This has changed your life, right? Um, Getting access to the Blue Angel debrief, that is not easy. Rob Stone was the first one ever to get access. I was back in 1992. We were filming the documentary Around the World Speed of Sound. I was the operations officer, number 5, as you know, that year, the lead solo, and talked to the boss. I said, hey, boss, I think we can let Rob into the debrief. First time ever. The tremendous trust that the team had. You had to earn that trust, right? So, how that occurred, right? Access, the trust, the wide-eyed moments. What's your takeaways on some of that?
Well, I mean, I think, being allowed in the first time we were allowed into the brief, and the debrief was in El Centro, about early on. I didn't realize though that this really, like, you're going behind the curtain here of the Wizard of Oz. It was like, I'd seen Rob's film, so I didn't realize, what it had taken for him to have to do that. But Boss Greg said to me, not everyone gets to do this. This isn't something that you get to see. So, we had to be very meticulous in being out the way and what we could do, where we put the cameras. We just had the 2 cameras. And the worst thing was, on that first week shoot, was that Jessica Young, who's brilliant, fantastic DP that I've worked with for many years on many different things. And she was so instrumental in the look, the cameras, figuring it out. I mean, she did so much work with Sony and everybody for us to have the right cameras. And we'd been there for we spent 3 days with them. My first time there, we spent just watching it. Okay, this is what we need. This is what's happening. So we could figure out what to shoot. She gets COVID the day before we were supposed to shoot, and she can't be there. So we've been planning, and suddenly I've lost my DP, my lead DP. And Michael Fitzmaurice, who's works with Kevin LaRosa, he was available. So I got to meet Michael and work with Michael for the first time, but we didn't know each other. I didn't know how he filmed, but I trusted he's a fantastic DP, and I like to let my DPs go. I don't need to tell them what to do. I just give them my brief. I want it, this is what I'm looking for, and then let them be. But we had to figure out this camera situation. Where do we put these 2 cameras? And he hadn't met anybody. Like, Jessica had met everyone. So there was a little bit more trust already. There was a little bit of trust because we'd all had the earlier meetings, whereas Michael was new. It made that first shoot, they were apprehensive. And, I'm not sure if they were giving us, everything at that point, or how much. I mean, so we're in for the brief, we're in for the debrief. Then the next day is, no, you can't be in today. I'm like, okay, well, we've got 2 more days before they're done. Then they let us in again on Friday for the first show. And then there was an incident on the Saturday show, and I was like, yeah, got to get on the debrief for this one. And I'm like, no, you can't. Well, what story here? Something happened. It's great to follow up. So there was this trust we had to build with them, that, despite them knowing us and everything, it wasn't until a bit later, so that was kind of like a wide-eyed moment in, like, we can't just get what we want when we want it. We are going to have to really work at getting this relationship working. But then by the time we ended up in Pensacola, I guess I think it was in April, they were much more, okay, yeah, you can come in now. And a lot more about that, the way we had conducted ourselves and everything. That gave us a bit more of that. But I mean, as far as real wide-eyed moment, was just how cool, calm, collected everybody is, how level everyone is. You don't feel tension in any way, but they're also doing things that, with the jets, that how can you be that calm and collected about it? Even watching it back when someone's made a mistake or something, everything was just so meticulous and matter of fact, and just doing it. And I think the most incredible thing for me, was the chair flying, witnessing the chair flying, sitting in the room when they do. I'm like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
You know? So like, there was this big, massive, like, they push back all at once, and their eyes closed, and he's just saying, close right, and they all do something at the same time. I was like, what is this? This is crazy.
Yeah.
I was all for the chair flying. Shoot more chair flying. You
Almost
know,
like a seance.
but they push back from the. I never got it. I saw it like twice, but we didn't have the cameras in the right position. I went to really get them, and that was the other thing. That talk about wide-eyed moments. Like there are no second takes. You can't have these guys go fly for you or do that again or do that. You've got to get it when it happens. If you don't get it, you don't get it. And that was another thing. Oh my God, this is going to be a little trickier here because we just have to get it. We inquired, can we send you up and we can shoot some stuff and you do a couple of maneuvers for us? Like, yeah, we can do that, but we need to get the airspace with and pay for it. And you're going to have to pay for the fuel and then everything. And the cost of that was like, all right, well, we're not doing that then.
Yeah.
You know, you're a documentary. You have got a very limited budget. You're not a big feature. You can't go out and spend the money. Hey, send the jets one more time. You've got to just get what you get when you get it. So there's no second takes.
So what were let's say the two most impactful shots that really resonated with you? And what's the one shot you wanted so bad, but you didn't get, or didn't get the way you wanted to get it?
I'm not sure I didn't get a shot I didn't want.
Yeah.
There was a shot I wanted that I didn't get till the very, very end. And it almost didn't make the film at one point. It wasn't in the film, which was just killed me. It was like one morning, it was one of those early days at Pensacola, and it'd been raining in the morning. So the hangar was shut. And then, you know, they were turning the jets at 5 a.m. I guess the one shot I didn't get was just the runway with all the blue lights on it, just like just before the sun comes up and it's dark and it's lit in this beautiful way with the jets there. I never quite got that shot. I definitely wanted to do that. We were never there early enough with the cameras because you had to climatize the cameras in Pensacola as well because of the humidity. So you had to bring in the side, when you bring them outside, they steam up very quickly. So you'd have to leave them out for an hour before they could be for the condensation to go away. So you'd have to climatize the cameras. So I never got that shot, but there was a shot in the morning and we're standing in the hangar and the hangar door opens and it just revealed the jets and the sun's coming up, you know, it's all orange. And I'm like, oh, wow, God, that shot, that's the shot. Like, that's the opening shot, isn't it? All the hangar doors back and there are the jets. And then this guy walks out in slow motion. Like with one of the guys with that helmet in hand, could be a pilot, could be a maintenance guy, it doesn't matter. Look, so I wanted that shot and I didn't get it until November. So that was something that I eventually, Mo, bless his heart, Brian, he was so good on the whole shoot. Whenever we needed something, he understood how important it was that the Blue Angels were represented, you know, in the meticulous perfection that they have. So when he knew the cameras were on, the jets on the flight line were always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right. If the 7 was in there because, or a dub or a 2-seater because of other stuff that was happening that day, he'd get 7 out there, get the 2-seater out there, and make sure single seaters 1 through 6, all in the right position. So no matter where we were, he was brilliant at that. So when I got that shot, I got Brian on board, everybody on board. And we stayed late at the end of the day because we weren't going to get it in the morning. So we waited for sunset. Sadly, didn't have any clouds. The sky is empty, but it's still beautiful colors. It just was, you know, would have been better with a little bit of cloud color. And it had been better earlier that week, and we didn't get it, and I was frustrated. But then we got it. We got the shot at night, and I'm like, oh, thank God for that. It was like the most satisfying. But I think the most fun shot to get, I mean, the helicopter stuff. So those are the other shots that I think are fantastic in the film. All the helicopter footage is amazing. But when we put the Phantom on, it had been an earlier idea. Use the Phantom, 1,000 frames a second, watching these. That's going to be great, you know. So, but it's expensive. When, where, how should we do it? We're talking to Kevin LaRosa. Kevin said we should put the Phantom on the helicopter. I'm like, perfect, great, right. Well, that's the idea. Yes. Then that week we had a little bit of weather. We had some clouds come in on day 2. One of the planes dropped out of formation for half of the.
Was that in San Francisco, Paul?
Oh no, this was in first time in Pensacola.
Pensacola. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
okay.
So we're in Pensacola and the peeing down with rain at 7, 8, 9, still peeing down with rain. We got the helicopter there. It's like they're not even going to fly. clouds break at 9, they debrief at 9:10. They decide they're going to fly by 9:30. By 10 o'clock, it's clear. They do a high show. You know, guys open up, it's so warm, the water's evaporated. You wouldn't even know it had been peeing down for the last 3 hours. And we get to shoot the high show. Fantastic. Day 2, same thing. High show coming again. But then Chomps had a communication issue and dropped out the formation for half of it. So we had shot day 1 at 5,000 feet, and day 2 we were at 10,000 to look down on everything. But some of the great shots are missing the number 4 plane, so we couldn't use them.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. So day 3 was a rain out. So now I've got 1 day left. And I'm like, don't use the Phantom. Put the other one, because with the Phantom camera, you only have you can only shoot 10 seconds. Well, no, you can only shoot a 10-second sequence. So basically the camera's running.
Yeah.
Say capture the last 10 seconds. And then it takes about 1 minute to 2 minutes to capture it. And then it's ready to go again. And they're flying all the time. So rather than being able to shoot everything, you have to pick, okay, we'll shoot this maneuver. That'll give us 2 minutes, pick the shot, the 2 minutes thing, then we'll be ready for this maneuver. So there was a limitation to how much footage we would be able to shoot that day. So I was against it because I wanted to get the other the camera so we can shoot the whole thing and have a constant thing. Well, they went with the, Kevin said, use the Phantom. Trust me, this would be great. And I said, okay, I trust you. I'd rather go the other way, but no, let's do it. So they put the Phantom on. They did that. It turned out it was like the best day for vapors. It was such a humid day that it was so good to have that stuff. There's a shot that's in the film, but it's in the film at full speed. That if you watch the Phantom version of it, of the sneak, the vapors around Chewie's jet, I'll have to send you a link for you to show, because it's like he's going through I wanted to actually put the voice of Han Solo. Okay, Chewie, going to go to hyperspace or whatever, because it just looks like he's changing dimensions. The way
is that from the? Did you shoot that from the pier?
No, we shot that from the helicopter. He's coming towards the helicopter, so the helicopter's in the middle, and
from the helicopter
this way. But just watching the cones sort of like forming and deforming, such an incredible shot. And there was a time where that was the opening shot of the film, where it's just this buzzed off and we started the film. In the end, I ended up just using it at full speed, so you don't get that effect. But there was so much great footage shot that day. And then as far as fun footage was the shot on the pier where the jet comes right at us. It's 50 feet off the ocean. We're 25 feet on the pier, and it comes right over our heads. That was just a moment I will never ever forget. That was something that I can see. What's great is I've got this. I can see it now. Like I can feel it in my head. That as it goes over you, like what is that? How am I going to get that sound? I never got the sound right in the mix. I wanted to sort of like get all these timpanis and stuff. Like that sound was like 20 kettle drums and a big sort of metal thing dropping, and this, and like the little ounce of force on you, just crazy. And got to shoot that twice, 2 different days, be right there, but behind the yellow flag as it's coming right at you. And we had Mike Fitzmaurice on camera day 1, and we had Destin Patera on day 2. 2 very differently, 2 just brilliant cameramen, but Mike Fitzmaurice has shot Batman and all this stuff. He's in Top Gun, so he's well aware of the power and force of the jets. And Destin, as a Pensacola native, is aware, but he'd never been under one. So Mike, I've got my video camera behind him. I'm shooting with like a Mike, like the camera, the jet goes over, and I zoom in to Mike, and Mike goes, "Like to get the camera. Wait till you see it," And then the next day on Destin, because we shot one where we tracked it. So we tracked it close up and just tracked it all the way in. And then for Destin, I just wanted the open shot and it just come at us.
Yeah.
If it's a bit more like your own home movies. And I filming behind Destin, and after it goes through, Destin's look on his face is just, what just happened? He's got this shocked. He's in utter shock. And like, you're right. Okay, yeah, I'm okay. He wasn't expecting it. He'd never done anything like that. It was so good. Such a great experience. So I love that. Those are things that I'll never forget.
Wow.
And I wish I'd got to the back of a jet. I never did.
Yeah, even the reverse shot is amazing.
Yeah.
Even the trailer of it going past.
Yeah, so we had the D5. We were shooting one way, and then we had the D5 pointing the other way on the tripod, just capturing everything that came over on that day. We just a static shot just to see, and it was very useful for us because that in the moment in the film, I really wanted to recreate the sneak, as like it is for the audience, where you're sort of like concentrating on something else, so we do use the exact shot. There goes the diamond, everybody look at it. Oh, what was that? I even got whiskers. We screened the film The Blue Angels in Pensacola, and I'm sitting there, like, I'm not going to get Chewy and Whiskers, Sure enough, Whiskers like, whoa, what was it?
Oh, that's a great story.
How do you not know? That was brilliant.
Well, it's amazing. I want to kind of bring this to a close. We could talk forever, or maybe we'll do some more because of your incredible insights. But I want to give us all one last kind of comment. And before I do that, though, I want to thank you for capturing what you just talked about. As a lead solo pilot flying that 5-jet, you're on the edge right there, right? And I love pushing the limits, right? And when you get a chance to push the limits, you always got to know the limits push back. So being on that edge, but I'm glad you captured that, and I can't wait to see. Please send us that link. It feels like you're going through a time zone. I mean, here's the thing: when you're in the cockpit, you don't feel it. It's all behind you. Especially if you go supersonic, right? It's just boom. But to see the emotion on your face, to see how you captured what that effect is to someone on the ground, right? And the teamwork that goes into that, the whole thing, not just the sneak pass. That was always one of my favorite, right? But the high alpha, that one where we stand the jet on its tails.
Yeah, the two of them coming in like this, absolutely.
That's actually never before been done. In my year, 1992, we put that in as 2 jets side by side. Before then, it had only been 1, and the complexity gets a lot harder there. But you guys with that camera and the helicopter have captured that better than anyone I've ever seen. Having flown that and actually created that maneuver, I've never seen it from that perspective. And for anybody who's watching this, take a look at the camera work that was created to really get the essence of how you're really hanging it out there. But it's really more the storyline. You did an amazing job. I think you tell the heart, you captured the ethos of the heart and soul of what it takes. We didn't even talk about the selection process, the G-forces, all the Amanda being there, Stalin for the first time. There's so many incredible things in this movie. I want to lead with this question. I'm wearing a shirt. It says glad to be here. The mindset, it's something pretty special that you probably at least really didn't have an idea till you get with the team. And once you're embedded with the team, you realize that glad to be here means something very special. It takes on a deep meaning. Why are you glad to be here right now? What does glad to be here mean to you now that you've been embedded with the Blue Angels?
Well, I mean, it's a phrase that I use now, especially when I'm talking to anyone, boss or any of those guys that we're always like, it comes up in conversation all the time. Well, glad to be here, mate. And we all sign off, glad to be here now, or emails and everything. We had Bridget Top, whose call sign was Big, like Big Top, right? So Jessica was called Boots. And I got the nickname Pool because of the English way of saying Paul. So they started calling me Pool, which was fun. But and Boss gave us all these nicknames. But anyway, Bridget had these hats made with GTBH on them, and which we made for everybody in the on the team. So we showed up with black and either black with black writing or blue with yellow writing, and gave them all to everyone. Glad to be here. And they were just like, they were so happy to have the hat with GTBH on it. So I thought, you could sense that what that means. But what I talked to Boss and discovered what it really means. He says it in the film about glad to be here, but it's like you've landed. You've got 6 jets up, 6 jets down. You came down and you're here. You're glad to be here. You made it back. We're in one piece. Everything's glad to be here, and that's the attitude. As I was saying before, everyone's happy to see you, right? That when they walk around, everyone's on first name basis too. You lose that military side where you got to salute your elders or your upper commands. You're all just Paul, Steve, John, Andrea, whatever, Carrie. You've got all your names are you're just on a first name basis. Everyone's really happy. They've walked down the corridor 6 times today, but every time they walk past their friends, they're fist bumping their mates, and they're happy to see us. They're happy to see everyone. It is glad to be there. They absolutely are. You see it. It's a mindset. Glad to be here. It's what I discovered. It meant they really were 100% glad to be there, no matter what the conditions, what was going on. There was never any sourpuss faces. Everyone's there with the most positive attitude, and I think that's what really changed me. And what from day one and all the time, that strive to be better than you can be, to push yourself to places. I wasn't an aerial photographer, experienced person. I've done action movies. I know what it takes to make action films, but hadn't done air stuff before. You're going to go direct this film on the Blue Angels. Well, you get in their midst and you 100% go, right, I'm stepping up. I'm going to do this. I can do this. Nothing's beyond me. I just got to set my mind to it. That's what they're all doing. They've never flown 12 inches apart. They're going to go and try and fly 12 inches apart. They think they can do it. They believe it. They have enough trust in everybody. And you put everybody around you that you trust. Same with the film team. I've got such a great crew around me. You trust everybody. You can step it up because you can push them, and they want to step it up. I mean, everybody in the crew was affected by this. We were all glad to be there, and we were all at the next level, pushing ourselves to the next level, because you can't avoid it. You can't ever get complacent. That's what I noticed, obviously with them, but as a team, we can't slip down and just sort of get a bit routine ourselves. No, we got to be on it. This thing's happening now. Well, let's go. You can't show up with your coffee and just chill a bit. It's like, we've got to get going. The camera's being done. Is this happening? We've got to get the shot. Okay, this is, talking yourselves through it. So everything is right. When it comes to doing it, we know exactly who's going to be where and how we're going to achieve what we're going to achieve. So, it's so glad to be here. The Blue Angels, they're infectious. It's just something that it becomes a part of you. And I can't tell you how happy I was for Rob to get the honorary Blue Angels thing in the being made an honorary Blue Angel at the premiere that we had in Pensacola. I mean, first of all, what an honor, but just see how much it meant to him, and how much the Blue Angels mean to Rob, and how his experience from making the film back then and working with you guys and Boss and making it around the world at the speed of sound, and how it stayed with him, and he completely stayed with them, and he's always done stuff to push the Blue Angels and be a positive influence with the Blue Angels in every manner. That's the stuff that rubs off on you, and you see how much these things it means to everybody, to get certified, to get the badge, to be like, I'm a Blue Angel now. Everyone's got their coin with us, the coin tap. So you can, I've got all my little coins, so, tap the coin. So you have to, someone's not got their coin, they go buy a round of drinks for everybody. But that just, I did it in when we were at the premiere. You're talking about ex-Blue Angels now. I've got the Cheese and Jamami and Chewy. They're no longer, they're just working in the Navy now. And I had my coin, and I took my coin and I started tapping it on the thing, thinking, I'm going to get one of you. No, they all had their coins. Drinks are on me. Because it's a constant. It's a thing that never leaves you. So that's what I took from it. And that's kind of like, I'm always glad to be here. Every day I wake up, I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you, guys.